great. It looks like it's 10 o'clock. Why don't we get started? Thank you for being on time today. My name is Kelly Comfort. I'm a graduate student in comparative literature. I prefer that you call me Kelly. If you'd like to call me Miss Comfort, that's fine as well. The class you're signed up for is Comparative Literature 2. It's called Great Books from the Middle Ages to the Enlightenment. So we're going to be reading a wide range of subject matter that covers several centuries. Let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. My field of specialty is really modern literature. It's the period right after this class. But these are really interesting texts because they're the foundation of sort of so much later literature. I'm originally from Florida. I came to California a few years ago. I like various activities. I like skiing, surfing. Any skiers in the class? All right, let's see if we talk about some trips in the winter. I like reading, traveling. I speak Spanish and French. Do we have any people who speak a foreign language in the class? Okay, some of you as well. We're going to be reading literature from all over, basically Western Europe. So if you can ever read the book in the original language, go for it. Today, it's our first class. We haven't read any text. I just have a few goals in mind for today. I'd like for us to get to know each other. So I've introduced myself. In a minute, you'll get a chance to introduce yourself to the rest of the class. Then we'll go over the content so you get an idea what this class is about, what you're getting yourself into, and I'll give out the syllabus and we can talk about the requirements for the class. And finally, the first book we're reading is Beowulf, and I'll give you some background information so when you go home over the next week and you start reading it, you're better prepared to understand that. Okay? So, what I'd like you to do now is to introduce yourself to two people in the class. Okay? If you have some friends in the class, you shouldn't be talking to them, you already know them. Get to know two of your classmates. Tell them your name, your major, your year, your favorite book. Great. Well, now that we've had a chance to get to know each other, to go over the course content and the syllabus, I want to go ahead and set up some of the background you might need to read the first book, which is Beowulf. Okay? So, one thing to know is I mentioned that Beowulf was written in the 10th century. It actually deals with a period in time 2 centuries earlier. So it's a backward, sort of nostalgic-looking text that treats the 8th century. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. It's also a time period where religion is changing and paganism is being replaced by Christianity. So that's one of the main thematics in the poem. What I'd like you to do while you're reading Beowulf, because it's a pretty complicated poem, luckily for us we're reading a modern translation of Old English. I'd like you to focus on 4 different aspects of this poem. So if you wouldn't mind taking some notes, I'll write these on the board. Has everyone had a chance to copy this part of the timeline? Okay, the first one I mentioned already. I want you to look at okay, if you could look at Christianity versus paganism in the text. Okay? Another important aspect, there's a lot of imagery of light and darkness in the poem. It would be interesting for us to discuss what that means and what it achieves. Okay, so pay attention to that while you're reading. There are also a lot of references to individual values, sort of the hero as a single individual, versus communal or community values. Okay, so you might pay attention to those references. And lastly, references to order and chaos. Okay, these are some of the tensions that are in the poem. So it would be helpful if you could sort of focus on those aspects. And one thing that I mentioned already is that the format for this class is discussion. It's going to be very helpful if you're familiar with the text. You can refer to specific passages in the text. Okay, so if you find ways to mark in your books or maybe take notes on another piece of paper, that'll help not only our discussions, but also help you write your essays and save you a lot of time later. Okay? Let me ask now if there's any questions before we finish up for today. Any questions about the class? Yes. Paganism. Oh, great, paganism. Let me ask the class, does anyone have a definition of paganism? Well, it looks like a good question. You weren't the only one, Lisa. Paganism really refers to a lot of the nature and goddess-based religions that predated Christianity, especially in the Anglo-Saxon tradition that we're dealing with Beowulf. Okay, so sort of pre-Christian, a lot of times polytheistic, many gods, right? Very nature-based. Excellent question. Anything else? Okay, I know it's been a lot of information. If you come up with some questions about the syllabus, the course, or the reading between now and next week, my email's on the syllabus, right? I have office hours on Wednesday, so you're welcome to come by then. And again, if you can't come to my office hours, feel free to contact me. We can schedule an alternative time. Okay? It was nice getting to know you.